Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Hills podcast. I am Cindy Kamakalum, your host, and today we're talking about pride and feelings in your business. And I got inspiration from, a super amazing woman who I admire so very much, Miss Miley Teely. You guys definitely check out her podcast, the My Taught You podcast. But I was listening to her podcast yesterday on my way to school and then on my way back, and then I kind of fell asleep listening to it. But she pointed out so many great things very early on in her podcasting career that I kind of want to touch on as they relate to my business, as well as just kind of adding my own, tidbits. But before we get into the episode, I want to give you guys a few updates. So, last week we didn't have an episode, and I apologize for that. I just wasn't feeling very well. The travel and just not getting a lot of sleep really caught up with me, and I just needed to take a break. And then last week as well, we consulted with a marketing company, which we ended up retaining, which I'm super excited about. And during our discovery meeting, we talked about the brand and what our goals are, and we kind of came to the determination that Hustle Hills and Conejo Valley Transit need to be separate. The demographics are separate, the content is separate, and so we don't want to confuse our customers when they come to ConejoValleyTransit.com and they're like, okay, well, we see they do transportation, but they also have this podcast and they're also doing this and that. So we just decided, you know what, the best way to do is just to bifurcate them. Hustle Hills will have its own website and they'll have its own marketing plan and, content strategy. And then Conejo Valley Transit will have its own. And I think that's just the best for the business. If you look at other big businesses, if you look at somebody like Unilever, they have so many brands under their umbrella, but they all have a distinct website. So that's what we're doing. So you can anticipate that in the next week or two. So all the content that we've created prior to, the move is still going to be available. It just will be available on a different website. And so I'll keep you guys abreast and keep you updated as that process rolls out. But I'm kind of excited about it. And I think it's long overdue. It's something I've thought about. So it's great to finally put that in motion. The second thing is the weight loss challenge is still going on. Morris seems to have lost the most weight overall. Okay, so he wasn't in the top spot last week. I believe a gentleman by the name of Daryl was, but Morris overall has lost the most weight. And so congrats to you, Morris, if you're listening. I'm super proud of you. Keep it up. This is what this challenge is about. It's really just inspiring people to just look at themselves, and it's not just about weight. Body positivity, as I talked about in a previous episode, is super important. And we want to acknowledge and appreciate our bodies in the way that they are, but also creating healthy habits. And so changing what we eat, incorporating exercise, not starving yourself, but just figuring out ways that you can become better is the ultimate goal. And when you start seeing pounds come off, it's super motivating. And I'm sure if you talk to Morris, he will tell you he feels great, he looks great, his clothes are fitting great. It's a beautiful thing. So keep it up. So that's for the weight loss challenge. Also, I wanted to mention, if you guys want to see who's in the lead from week to week, you can go to ConejoValleyTransit.com. Under the main menu tab, there's the programs and events, and then it's a sub menu. You'll see the leaderboard. You'll also see a page to donate. If you're inspired by this challenge or you want to participate in this challenge the next time around, because we are going to do another one, you guys can donate $25, and the $25 just goes to the cash pool for the participants. The top 3 winners will get the money from the cash pool. So we have about, I would say, 6 weeks or so left. You guys can still donate. Everything's going, no money's going to anybody else but the winners. So you can go to ConejoValleyTransit.com, click on programs and events, and then the donate tab if you guys would like to do that. And we appreciate all of that. So without further ado, we're going to get into the episode. And again, like I said, we're talking about pride and feelings in our business, and how they cripple us sometimes. So let's get into it. Okay, so not only has a lot happened since the last time you guys heard from me, there's a lot of things that have happened in my business. And these are things that I'm sure occur in every business across the board. And I think that sometimes you have to kind of take stock and take a look at like how you're contributing to your business, how you're contributing to the organization that you work for, depending on, where you fall. And so these things are just um, things that I think are super important for people to pay attention to and really evaluate. So self-evaluate wherever they may fall within the business spectrum. So the first one is when you're starting a business or you run a business, it requires you to be flexible. Okay. You need to cultivate the experience for all things in your business. You need to know how to do the marketing. You need to know how to post on social media. You need to know how to create a website. You need to know whatever your business is. If you're making candles, you need to know how to make the candles. If you're cleaning carpets, you need to get out there and clean the carpets. Whatever your business is, you need to be the one from day one, hands on doing it. Now, you could very well hire someone to do those things, but you're probably not maximizing your return because you're going to be paying someone to do this service for you, unless you just have a huge network and from day one you have 1,000 clients. But it is super important, even if you do have that network, to be hands-on. Excuse me, to be hands-on, so that you know how how the business works, how everything functions. Because how can you properly delegate or know your blind spots if you've never done it yourself? One thing that I've learned and realized is that when I am on the ground, like hands-on with my team, doing everything, I am able to know when we need to pivot. When a mistake happens, what's the solution to that mistake? Not dwelling in the thing that went wrong, but figuring out, okay, what can we do about it? And you get to a certain point where you're not going to be that person. You may grow to a point where you have, 100 employees. And so you hire someone to be that person. But at least in the beginning, it's super important that you know what's going on. And I see that a lot of people, they get into their business or they're starting a business and they want to be a boss so bad that they will hire all these people and they're not really making any money, which is frustrating because the whole purpose of starting a business is to make money. And it's like, you could probably do that. I mean, if you just did a little bit of research or if you just spent a little time, you probably could figure out how to do all of those things. And that way, by the time you're hiring someone, you know exactly how you want it to be. You know exactly the best product or the best service that you can offer because you've done it. Um, one of Another important part is relationships. Okay, so relationship building. When you're doing the work, when you're answering the calls, when you're going out and doing the transits, for example, you're building relationships with the people that you're coming in contact with. And that's super important because those customers, those people who you're coming in contact with, they're your advocates. They are the people who are going to say, yes, this company is good, or yes, this person is good, or I'm going to recommend this business or this company to someone else because I've met them. When you're just a figurehead, some voice, or person behind a door that nobody's ever met, there's no real way to vouch for you. And employees, it's really hard to find good employees. And I'll just say that as somebody who's been running a business for several years. Finding good employees is hard. If you find them, cherish them, reward them, invest in them because it's just hard to find good employees these days. Most people generally are lazy and in the very beginning, they'll do great work. And then you'll see over time that they'll get comfortable or complacent and they'll just slack off. So relationships are super important. So in the very beginning, you have to be the one putting in 110% so that when you do hire somebody, you know what to look for. Um, let's see what else I have. And also another really important point of doing the work is that you see what goes wrong and what goes right. And when you see it firsthand, okay, this is not what I want. This is how we're going to do it moving forward. If you are only the person on the receiving end of the bad news, not only is that going to tick you off, you're going to be like, why are you guys messing it up? When sometimes it's not really like a function of it being messed up. It just didn't work out and you need to find another way to implement or to, do the thing that you're doing better. So I think it's super important. That's the first point, is just you have to be flexible. You have to be hands-on, do what you need to do to get your business to a point where you can hire people, because that's ultimately the goal. Unless you're, one man, mom and pop, and that's how you like it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Number two, I'm talking to the women here because I find that men are very flexible, or let me not say flexible. They are just easier to deal with in stressful situations. So women, get out of your feelings. Please get out of your feelings. I cannot tell you how many times I will call a business will call me, I'll speak to someone, and when it's a woman, 8 out of 10 times they have an attitude or they're being very sharp with me. And I'm like, what is the problem? Yes, us as women, I think that if you look historically, we've had to fight to be in certain places and sit at certain tables and walk through certain doors. But it really doesn't pay that when you get to those positions, you got a funky attitude. I'm a woman myself, and I'm sure that I've been that person before, but I'm very cognizant now of how I behave and how I speak to people and how I treat people. Obviously, if you're dealing with a difficult client, you're dealing with a difficult client. I mean, sometimes you have to be assertive and sometimes you have to kind of like lay the law of the land, but most times it really pays to be pleasant and smile when you speak and not just be so authoritative, because your customers, the people who are calling you, the people who you're coming in contact with, and even if they're not your customers, if it's people you're networking with, these are the things that they're noticing. Women tend to be, and I'm not picking on women, I'm just saying I'm a woman and I'm telling you guys, take it from me. If I talk to 10 men and 10 women, I can almost guarantee that 10 of those men are going to be cool. They're willing to help you out. They don't take their job so seriously. It's like they're just super easygoing. Whereas the women, it's like you it it's super difficult to work with women. And I hate that it's that way because we're so smart and we have so much to offer. We have so many great ideas. And I get it. It's like, no, this is how it's supposed to be. And we just want to follow the rules. And there's a way to follow the rules without coming off, bitchy. You know what I mean? We are here. We're at the table. Take advantage of that opportunity. Build relationships. If you have to say no, but say it in such a way where the person will know that it's not a personal attack. You just don't want to help them out. You can't, And so women, you really have to get out of your feelings. It's not about you. It's not about, who likes you or who doesn't like you or who did what to you. You have to get out of your feelings. It's not about you 90% of the time. So that part is super important to know. And I know that I'm probably going to get attacked for that comment, but it's just true. It really is. Okay, the next part is be resourceful. This is one that this gets me going. I find that people are just so comfortable asking instead of trying to figure it out themselves or just thinking like, what should I do in this situation? Instead of doing that, most of the time, probably because they don't want to get it wrong, they just ask, what should I do here? How do you want me to do this? And it's like, for me, in the position that I'm in, because I have so many things going on in my life, I'm balancing my home life, and being a mother and a wife, and then I'm running a business and I'm having to take calls and speak to customers and talk to vendors. And then I have school, law school, where I'm reading cases, I'm briefing cases, I'm, contributing and doing all these things with school. It's like so many different things that I'm juggling. By the time I'm hiring you because I want you to do the work. Not that you can't consult with me or you can't confirm with me or that you can't ask me questions, but I'd rather you ask me questions up front if you don't understand something or I say something and you're unclear. You want to seek clarification? For sure, ask. But don't ask me to do the work, because if you are asking me what should be done or how I should do it, I actually have to stop and think about it. And there's no problem in me doing that, but then it actually takes away from the fact of you being there because you're not proffering solutions. You're not the one thinking about, okay, I've seen this done this many times. Maybe this would work. Come up with 2 or 3 different examples or solutions or ways in which something can be done or written or said, and then present those. Here are 3 different options. Which one do you think is best? I'd rather look at 3 and pick one than have to think about how to do it. And I see this across the board. And it doesn't irk me, but I think that it actually robs the individual of the experience because you're supposed to be learning wherever, whatever job you're in, whatever position you're in, you're supposed to be learning how to do the job more efficiently, quicker, so that you can move up. If you're the type of person who's always asking questions, you're not really building confidence in your supervisor or your boss because they're going to say, well, they don't have the confidence to make these decisions. They're not coming to the table with solutions and options. So we can't promote them. They're not ready. And I've made that mistake before. I've promoted somebody against my better judgment only to be disappointed because they weren't ready. And so I think that in any position, if you're looking at it like just a job that pays your bills, fine. But if you are trying to build a career and you're trying to move up, you have to be the type of person who's resourceful. Do a Google search. Ask somebody else. Ask me, your boss, last. Because by the time you're asking me, I have to stop and I have to think about it, or I have to look at the document, or I have to do this or do that. So I think that in any business, any organization, any position that you hold, always try to figure out, how can I do this without having to ask first? Nobody's saying not to run it by anybody or make a decision or pull the trigger without getting, the go ahead, but at least present something because that's the reason why you're at the job. And so I it I've seen it. It happens. And I just wish that people would understand that this is ultimately your career. Okay. When you're looking for recommendations or when you do finally move on, you have to think like, what value did I contribute to the position that I was in? And a lot of people don't think in that, fashion. And, that's not really good. One of the things that my league always says is read. And I cannot agree with this more. I have books everywhere. I have books on my Kindle. I have books on my desk. I have books in my office. I have books on my bookshelf. I have books on my book list on Amazon. I'm constantly reading books, even if I can't read it through. And I'm also reading in school, a lot of reading. But even if I can't read the book through, I might skim it, find a chapter that I think is, relevant or something that's interesting, and I'll read that. Or I'll read multiple things at a time. And I don't necessarily recommend that, but because of the way my schedule is set up, I do bounce between things. I'll hear somebody mention a book and I'm like, ooh, I got to get that. And I'll start reading it or I'll put it on my book list. And so reading is super important. And I know that not everybody likes to read books. You can read articles, you can read newspapers, you can read blogs, but just reading. I think that reading helps you build your vocabulary, how to format certain sentences and structures, how to communicate, just be a better communicator overall. And a lot of people just don't do it. I think that any person, employee, anybody should be reading at least 1 to 3 things a day. Leisure reading, business reading, reading something that's relevant to the industry or your job. It's just super important to read. It exercises your brain. It keeps you sharp and on your toes. And just not enough people do that. So I would say definitely read. The next thing, and let me tell you, this, because this is like one of my biggest pet peeves. Now, I am naturally not the most patient person. And it's funny because I was saying this to my dad the other day. I was telling him that my son has made me more patient. He's like, you're not patient. And I had to laugh because it's true. I'm not the most patient person. I've learned how to become patient in my business and in my home life because obviously everybody doesn't move the way you want them to move when you want them to move. But nothing gets on my nerves more than when people don't exercise a sense of urgency. It's like you give them something and you are expecting that they're going to get back to you right away or give you an answer right away, and they just don't. I've had to learn to get over that. If I want something right now, I'll tell somebody, I need this in the next 5 minutes, or I need this in the next hour. I'll just put a deadline on it. That way they kind of have an idea in the scope of when this thing is important. And I think that if you are dealing with an individual who's just giving you a whole bunch of stuff and you're not quite sure how to prioritize, ask. That's a great time to ask, like, okay, when do you need this by? Or, how important is this, to get completed? Not how important. Yeah. How important is this to you? And they will definitely tell you, okay, that I think I know for sure. And so, yeah, so just to round that point up, I'm not saying that every single thing that's given to you needs to be done with a sense of urgency. This is why it's super important to be intuitive and to actually pay attention in the role that you're in. You'll work with somebody for 5 months, 3 months, 10 months, and you're supposed to be taking stock. Okay. When I say take stock, it means to just be observant. Look around you, think about the interactions that you've had with this person. What do they typically normally expect or do? And then apply that to the things that are given to you. If they give you something and you're like, okay, usually when she's doing this, she turns it around in 20 minutes. Well, then your expectation, if you don't want to ask, is that maybe I should do it in a similar time frame. To be on the safe side, you can ask. After you've asked a couple of times, maybe stop asking and just do it. But I find that people who are working are generally lazy. They don't want to think. They don't want to, go into resolution mode because it takes energy from them, which is sad because, that's the whole point why you're there. So I think knowing when and when not to apply the sense of urgency is as important as applying the sense of urgency. So you can start by asking, when do you need this by? How important is this to get done today? Or does this have a deadline? Those are all ways that you can kind of get insight into when this person needs this thing. And that way it'll make you more efficient in doing your job. And then always keep a list. I mean, I keep hundreds of lists, a list everywhere. If I come up with an idea, something comes to my mind, I write it down. So always have a list and go through that list multiple times in the week. Keep going back to that list. If something has been completed, highlight it, cross it out, or put a check by it. But just make sure that you are thoroughly going through your notes to make sure that all things have been completed, because there is nothing worse than you thinking you have nothing to do, but you have things to do. Another thing about lists, and so because I keep so many lists, I'm constantly going through them. And it's just important that when you write things down, you're intentional. You write it down in such a way that you're going to understand and remember what that thing applied to. Because some people will write certain things down and they don't remember what it means or what the importance of that thing was. So just be intentional about what you're writing down and always go back through your list. Another thing I'll say, any notebook, unless you brought it in yourself, somebody gives you something at work, always assume that it's not your property. So that at the end, if you decide to part ways, that notebook is supposed to be something of value to the person that you were working for or the organization that you were working for. Now, if you guys agree that, okay, I'm going to take this notebook because they were my notes, because people will always assume that they're my notes, right? But you're writing notes for the business. And usually if the person furnished the notebook to you, it technically isn't yours. You're just using it to jot down different assignments. So be careful what you write in your notebook. Don't go writing, nasty things about your boss in your notebook, because just don't do that. But that's that point. Okay, last and certainly not least, we got to grow up. Okay, listen, you are working for somebody, you are running a business, you're thinking about running a business. It is going to require you to grow up. It can't always be woe is me. You can't always have an attitude. You can't always have an excuse. You can't always get things wrong. You have to be responsible. Okay, you have to hold yourself accountable. When you make a mistake, immediately apologize, immediately own it. It's your mistake. Everybody makes them. Nobody is nobody's insulated from making a mistake. But what separates the person who makes a mistake and makes an excuse and the person who makes a mistake and owns up to it is that you're probably going to trust that the person who fessed up to their mistake is being honest, and you're going to give them another chance. So I just think it's super important that we all take accountability for what we put into our work, because what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. You're not going to get promoted if you're lazy. Simple. You're not going to get a raise if you're lazy. Simple. Your business is not going to be referred to other people if you are sloppy or you cut corners or you're not thorough. And so it's super important to think about all of these things together, as a unit, as opposed to individual things. If one thing applies to you and the other things don't apply to you, take what applies to you. But at the end of the day, pride, feelings in your business, they have to go. You need to look at it as objectively as possible. I'm here for a purpose for this amount of time, or I'm doing this thing for this reason. Your feelings don't matter. You have to let your pride go. The only thing that customers, or the people that you are starting your business for to serve, what problem you're looking to solve, they're only concerned with that. Okay. The customer service that you provide, the service that you're providing, does it help them? The product that you're supplying, does it help them? You as a person, they will come to learn or come to like, but only if you make yourself likable, and not everybody, I'm not saying be, the person that everybody walks all over. No, but keep in mind that this is a business. It's not a friendship. You're not dating. You don't have to love each other. I've worked with and are currently working with some people that I don't care too much about. I mean, we're just not the type of people who would go and get coffee, but it's business. And as long as the business relationship is intact, that's all that matters to me. I'm pleasant. I reciprocate. When you treat me a certain way, I will reciprocate that. I always lead, with kindness and professionalism. And if you show me otherwise, I'll just keep my distance. I'll deal with you from a distance, but I'm never going to just come out and be disrespectful to anybody, because this is not a personal thing. This is a business thing. So that's the episode today, guys. I hope that it was useful in some way, shape, or form. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. Again, Hustle Hills is getting its own website. We'll be sure next week to update you on where we are in the process. Make sure you guys are following us on social media. All of our links and handles will be in the description bar below. I'm so glad that I'm back. You guys have a wonderful rest of the week. And until we speak again, stay blessed. Peace.